Welcome to Voyager Learning's ACER Secondary Scholarship Exam introductory video. My name is Gabrielle and I'm glad you can join us. This video is going to walk you through the process and the details of the ACER Secondary Scholarship Exam. So what is the ACER Scholarship Exam? Let's take a look at an outline. Summary. This is for the ACER Secondary Scholarship Exam, Years 7 to 12. At Voyager Learning, we offer preparation classes for the ACER Secondary Scholarship Exam for students who are wanting to enter a private school in Year 7 or above. This is a general admission test for students who want a full or even a part scholarship at a private or Catholic school. There are 3 levels. Level 1 is for entry to Years 7 and 8. And this exam is usually taken by primary school students in Year 5 or Year 6. And there is an exam for entry to Years 9 to 12, and that's Levels 2 and Level 3. Now, there are some differences between Level 1 and Level 2 and 3 exam, which I'll talk about now. The test itself consists of 3 parts. Humanities, that is comprehension and interpretation, and mathematics. Now, for the levels 1 to 3 exam, there are mathematics questions in all 3 levels of the exam, but there are only science questions in exams for levels 2 to 3, and that's for students who want to enter high school or get a scholarship for years 9 to 12. So what is in the humanities exam? So let's start with that section of the exam first. Summary. Humanities, comprehension, and interpretation. This test asks you to answer questions related to written and visual material. The material may be drawn from subject areas such as English, art, history, geography, and social studies. No special knowledge in these areas is assumed. All the information you need is printed on the paper. This means that if you do not know or understand some of the information, you may be able to work it out from what it means from the stimulus in the material. The test does not require recall of information, so you don't have to recall any facts or years or dates or anything like that, nor is it directly related to a knowledge of particular school subjects. Candidates are required to think critically and make judgments about different types of texts, including fiction, non-fiction, poetry, drama, diagrams, and maps. The test contains a number of units with several questions in each unit. Overall, there will be between 40 and 45 multiple choice questions, each with 4 alternative answers, marked A, B, C, and D. Okay, so let's take a look at the second component in the exam, maths and science. So we're going to start with maths first, because maths is for the first test paper, which is only for years 7 to 8. All right, so let's have a look at maths, and then after that we'll talk about science, which is at levels 2 to 3. Now this test attempts to measure your mathematical and scientific abilities if you're doing the level 2 to 3 test, rather than your school achievement in these areas. The material used for the questions is selected from a wide variety of sources and may differ from standard school-based curriculum materials. So that means that what you're studying at school may not be what is presented to you as questions in the exam. Now, for all levels of the exam, 1, 2, and 3, these are the following mathematics skills that are tested. The focus in this part of the test is on mathematical or quantitative problem solving, including the analysis and interpretation of mathematical or quantitative information, evaluation and selection of key information, and reorganization and transformation of information. Also, the identification of relationships, synthesis, application to solving problems, and evaluation of solutions. Now, the scientific skills that are tested, and remember this is only for the scholarship exam levels 2 and 3, the focus for the scientific section is on scientific critical thinking, including analysis and interpretation of scientific information, the comprehension of any concepts presented, so that's whether you understand them, the identification of relationships, so what things are related to other things, and hypothesizing, so being able to put forward a hypothesis or some key questions which you would like to find the answer to. Furthermore, other science skills that are tested include generalizing, the application of logic and scientific method, drawing logical inferences, evaluation of information, evidence, experimental arrangements, and conclusions. The test itself consists of between 32 and 36 multiple choice questions. For Level 1 candidates, all the questions are on aspects of mathematics. So remember, Level 1 candidates are students wanting to enter high school in years 7 or 8. And for Level 2 and Level 3 candidates, that is for students wanting to enter high school in years 9 to 12, half of the questions in this section of the exam are on maths and half are on science topics. Now, the third part of the exam is the written expression exam. So let's explore what that entails. Summary. Written expression. There are 2 topics for writing. These will be set to allow you to use different styles of writing. They are presented as 2 separate tests. About 1.5 A4 pages of ruled paper will be provided for each test, but you are not asked to make the pieces of writing any special length, and quality is more important than length. This part of the test is concerned with your ability to express your thoughts and feelings in writing. What you have to say and the way you say it will be assessed. In assessing written expression markers at ACER, they consider the following elements. The thought and content. So this basically means the quality of what is said in your piece of writing and what is made of and developed from the task. Also, the kinds of thoughts and the ideas that are presented in response to the task. You will also be assessed on your structure and organisation. That is, the quality of the structure and organisation developed to respond to the topic. That is, how well your writing is structured and organised. They'll also assess the shape and form of your writing piece and the sequence and cohesion. So how well do ideas flow and how well are they put together? And finally, the expression, style and mechanics. So this is the vocabulary, the grammar, the spelling, the punctuation. This is the quality of the language that you use to organise and present what you write. So this is going to be assessed on the effectiveness and appropriateness of the language. So does the language match the genre that you're trying to write in? You'll also be judged on your expressiveness, so your good quality expressive vocabulary, and how fluent you are, so how well your sentences flow from one to the next. and the control of the mechanics of English. This is the grammar, punctuation, and sentence structure. The stimulus material you are given must be the basis of your writing. This is very important. You will be penalised if you seem to be presenting a piece of writing that is not developed from the stimulus. Your job is to respond to the stimulus in the way that is most interesting to you and which best displays your ability to write and express yourself. The stimulus may be a picture, a statement, or a combination of the two. The stimulus may allow you to tell a real or imagined story, describe a situation, incident, or scene, outline or explain something, and or express a point of view or present an argument. Some topics might suggest that you write a story, others might suggest a conversation, a discussion, or reflection. Whichever style you choose, be aware that it is clear, expressive, engaging, and interesting writing that is being sought. Read the topics carefully. Spend some time thinking about each of the topics. If you finish before time is up, go over your work and make any alterations you feel may improve your writing. So let's look more closely at the test structure and timing. So as outlined previously, there are 3 sections in the test. Written expression, where you get 2 questions to answer or 2 texts to write, and you have 50 minutes to do it. So most students spend an equal 25 minutes on each written task. Humanities section, 40 to 45 questions. These are multiple choice, and you get 40 minutes to do that. So that's basically 1 question per minute. And mathematics, 32 to 36 questions. Again, they're multiple choice, and you get a little bit more time, just over a minute, to write your answer. So you get 40 minutes, same as the humanities exam. Let's take a look at some sample questions, because I'm sure you're all keen to see what the questions actually look like in each section. So we're going to start with the humanities question, a sample question for the humanities part of the test. So just a reminder that this test asks you to look at written and visual material and answer questions about it. The material will be presented in a variety of forms, such as informative writing, poems, stories, diagrams, cartoons, or drawings. All the information you need to answer the questions will be printed in the stimulus material to which the questions refer. The test has several units with a number of questions in each unit. Here is a practice example. The following passage was written by a man who works with a film unit, which photographs animals in different parts of the world. So take a look at the animal in the picture. Can you identify what animal that is? And where in the world do you find these animals? So have a think about it. You can pause the video if you like, and then I'll come back and answer that question shortly. Welcome back. How did you go? If you guessed that this is a Galapagos tortoise, you are absolutely correct. And if you don't know already, the Galapagos Islands, where these tortoises live, is a group of islands just off the west coast of Ecuador, which is a country at the northwestern edge of South America, just below Colombia. So well done if you got that question correct. All right, moving on. Let's read through the reading. In the middle of the watering place, like a huge boulder rolled down through a furrow in the mud, the bulk of a gigantic tortoise loomed out of the dusk. At last, a giant Galapago in its natural surroundings. I stood amazed in the presence of this prehistoric bulk, which rose like a black island from the depths of the mud. It moved, a tiny head attached to the hump by a snake-like neck, looked up, and bright brown eyes set in wrinkled skin watched us keenly. Apparently, the tortoise did not like what he saw. Man, his enemy, and with a slow, deliberate movement, he raised himself up in the mud and began to crawl away. 500 pounds, which is about 250 kilos, 300 years old, the oldest living animal. Facts and figures ran through my mind. To list his dimensions would do nothing to describe the Galapagos. It was the massive bulk, the bearing of age, the ancient reptilian world that he represented, which impressed me. The high-domed shell wobbled away, supported by feet like cut-off stovepipes. He ploughed through the bush, dragging a long streamer of jungle vine that was hooked under his shell, crushing the grass and leaving a wake of trampled undergrowth. His breathing could be heard clearly 50 feet away. The slowness of prehistoric ages was in his step. He was a symbol of the ancient islands. Undisturbed, he would live to an even greater age. He moved slowly, and why not? He had plenty of time. A scarlet flycatcher, delicate and finely plumaged, sat on a vine above him, watching him pass, and then darted off in a brilliant flash to catch an insect. It returned to perch on the slowly wobbling carapace of the moving tortoise. I realized that we had cut our way into the last hidden sanctuary of the giant tortoise. It was a sanctuary where we did not belong. There's a couple of notes there based on the facts in the reading. So 500 pounds is about 227 kilos, and 50 feet is about 15 meters. Okay, let's take a look at the questions now. To the writer, the most interesting thing about the tortoise was that it A, was the largest example of the species, B, was a living representative of a past age, C, moved with such ponderous dignity, D, had never before been confronted by a human being. So what I'd like you to do now is to gather a pen or pencil and a piece of paper and pause the video at this point, jot down that question. And then if you need to, you can go back to the reading on the previous slides by rewinding the video and give yourself some time to answer the question. So pause the video while you do answer the questions, and when you're ready to check the answers, restart the video. Okay, welcome back. So let's move on to the next few questions, and then we'll check the answers at the end. Right, question 2. In the first paragraph, the writer conveys his initial impression of the tortoise mainly by what? Is it A, by concentrating on his own startled reactions, B, comparing it with large solid objects, C, contrasting the dark coloration of the tortoise with the lighter surroundings, or is it D, by using scientific language to give an accurate picture of the tortoise? So again, pause the video at this point, copy down the questions and choose your answer. Or if you're pretty confident, you can just write the letter of the answer, A, B, C, or D. And you can also go back and rewrite or reread the text again, just to help you answer the questions as you go. Okay, moving on. Question 3. The writer uses a description of the flycatcher mainly to A, point out the contrast between the two creatures, B, emphasize how insensitive the tortoise was to external influences, C, show the untouched beauty of the sanctuary, or D, illustrate the friendly nature of the tortoise. Okay, so once again, take a moment to pause the video and answer that question on your paper. And then when you're ready, you can continue on for the next questions. Right, welcome back. Number 4. The tortoise moved along in a manner that was A, careful and quiet, B, precarious and uncertain, C, slow but threatening, or D, lumbering and determined. All right, once again, pause the video to answer those questions. And then when you're ready, you can restart and we'll move on to the next one. Question 5. The writer's feelings about finding the tortoise seem to change during the passage. Which one of the following pairs of phrases best describes how he felt at the beginning and at the end of the passage? So in this question, you're looking for a pair of phrases. So which one of the following pairs of phrases? So we're looking for one pair. Is it A, concerned that the tortoise might not appear at the beginning and at the end, certainty that he had made a great discovery? Or is it B, fascination with the physical characteristics of the animal at the beginning, but at the end, regret that he would not be able to capture the animal? C, at the beginning, was it excitement about the emergence of the tortoise, and at the end, a recognition that man was an intruder? Or was it D, at the beginning, was it apprehension that his hiding place would be discovered, and at the end, was it relief that he would be able to escape from the situation? All right, again, pause the video at this point and choose the pair of phrases that you think is correct, either A, B, C, or D. And that takes us to the end of the question. So after you restart the video, we're going to check the answers. So pause, go ahead, finish question 5, and rejoin me when you're ready for the answers. All right, welcome back. So let's go through the answers now to questions 1 to 5 in our humanities practice section of the ACER Scholarship Exam. Let's take a look. All right, so this is just one slide. So again, these are multi-choice questions, so you should have just one letter answer for each question. So question 1, the answer was B. Question 2, the answer was A. Question 3, the answer was A. Question 4, the answer was D. And question 5, the answer was C. How did you go? Hopefully you got 5 out of 5. All right, let's move on now to some mathematics sample questions for the math section of the test. Question 1. The sum of the greatest and smallest of the numbers 217, 9, 63 and 14 is A, 23, B, 72, C, 226, or D, 280. Number 2, what is the length of a pin? 2/5 as long as a pin that is 4 centimeters long. Is it A, 5/8 of a centimeter, B, 4/5 of a centimeter, C, 1 3/5 centimeters, or D, 2 centimeters? All right, so pause the video again now and work out the answers to questions 1 and 2. And when you're ready, we'll move on to the next set of questions. Welcome back. Let's take a look at questions 3 and 4. 3. How many odd numbers less than 50 are exactly divisible by 3? Is it A, 7, B, 8, C, 16, or D, 25? Number 4. The diagram represents a rectangle 18 centimeters by 8 centimeters. How long is the side of a square the same area as this rectangle? Is it A, 9 centimeters, B, 12 centimeters, C, 13 centimeters, or D, 16 centimeters? All right, again, so take some time, pause the video and work out the answers to questions 3 and 4. And when you're ready to continue, restart the video for the next question. All right, welcome back. Question 5. 2 dolphins were swimming. The first dolphin swam for half an hour at a certain speed. The second dolphin swam for 1 hour at half the speed of the first dolphin. So the first dolphin swam A, the same distance as the second dolphin, B, half as far as the second dolphin, C, twice as far as the second dolphin, or D, 4 times as far as the second dolphin. All right, so take a moment to pause the video now, try and work out the answer to question 5, and when you're ready to continue, restart the video. All right, question 6. A pattern is to be formed from 4 square pieces of cardboard, each with a perimeter of 4 centimeters. Each piece of cardboard must touch at least one other piece of cardboard. What is the longest perimeter of a pattern which can be formed from the 4 pieces of cardboard? Is it A, 8 centimeters, B, 10 centimeters, C, 12 centimeters, or D, 16 centimeters? All right, so take a moment to pause the video and answer this question in your book. And when you're ready, we will check the answers. Okay, welcome back. How did you go? Hopefully you got them all correct. So let's check the answers for our maths questions 1 to 6. Right. Question 1, the answer was C. Question 2, C. Question 3, B. Question 4, B. Question 5, A. And question 6, D. How did you go? Hopefully you got all of those correct. Okay, so our final section of the test is our written expression sample question. Let's take a look. As explained earlier in this video, there are 2 topics for writing in the exam. In the 25 minutes that are allowed per topic, you will have time to plan and edit your writing. The task will be to write on a set topic. What you write can be imaginary or based on real events. You may write in the form of a story, a letter, a discussion, or an argument. Most importantly, it should be short, lively, and interesting to read. Your writing will be assessed on what you have to say, how well you organize your thoughts, and how well you express yourself. On the next slide is an example of an ACER writing task. Use the picture below as the basis for a piece of writing. Write about something that happened or might have happened. You can write about yourself and people you know, or about imaginary characters and events. Your writing will be judged on the kind of situations, characters, events, and feelings that you present, and on how well you express yourself. So what I'd like you to do now is to pause the video and set yourself 25 minutes. Use your watch or a timer, and set yourself 25 minutes to quickly think about, plan, write a response, and check your writing within that 25-minute time period. Pause the video while you do that, and then when you come back, we'll take a look at a sample answer that you might like to think about and compare to your own. Okay, so before we take a look at the sample answer, just a reminder that for each part of the written expression section of the test, you only have 25 minutes to respond to the image or the graphic or whatever it happens to be on your page. And you can write in any genre you choose because the stimulus that's provided will lend itself to a particular style of writing. So, for example, the one that we saw of that creaky chained door might lend itself to a horror story or a ghost story. Or if you'd received, say, a chart or a map, might lend itself to a non-fiction type of text, such as a diary of a holiday that you took to somewhere in particular. So in future lessons of this preparation course, we're going to have a look at lots of different stimulus materials and discuss how you could attack them in the written expression part of the exam. But for now, just a reminder that when you're writing and preparing yourself for taking this exam, you should monitor your writing time. That's very important. And on the slide are some suggestions to how you can do that. So the general rule of thumb is setting aside 7 minutes to write the introduction or the opening paragraph of your text. Spend the most time on the body, so 13 minutes is a rough guideline. Spend the least amount of time on your conclusion, but leave yourself 2 minutes just to quickly scan over your work, just to check for any spelling or grammatical errors. When complete, of course, you have to hand it in. Now, as I said, in future lessons of this preparation course, you will have the opportunity to send your writing in to one of our teachers for marking, so you get real-time teacher feedback on your writing task, and that's included as part of your course fees. All right, so without further ado, let's move on to take a look at the sample answer based on that stimulus that you saw earlier. So I'll just read through this for you and you can just follow along on the slide as I go. Rachel peered through the chained wooden door, careful to avoid the sharp edges of the cracked paint and splintered wood. The pane of glass in the doors was long gone, and she briefly wondered why the door was still chained, when a small child could easily climb through. She guessed that the inside of the house was deterrent enough for any small child, but she, as a grown-up 13-year-old, had no such fears of what lay beyond those decrepit doors. A faint whistling came from inside, followed by a rush of stale-smelling cold wind. Or was it wings? A bat, perhaps? Or just a harmless bird? She was scared of neither, so she set about working out how to get inside. Her friends had dared her to go in, and she wasn't the sort of girl to pass up a challenge like this. The only caveat was that she bring her phone to film herself inside, so her friends could verify the challenge and she could receive her prize, although she didn't yet know what that was. Armed with her phone, Rachel decided to try her luck around the side of the house, where she wouldn't arouse the neighbours' suspicions. She switched on the torchlight on her phone and began scanning the walls for a way in. This side of the house had fared better than the front, protected as it was by tall pine trees and a high fence about a metre behind her. Rachel could still just make out the colour of the paint, a faded duck-egg blue. She thought briefly that the house must have looked quite pretty in its heyday, before the accident happened. She stopped moving her phone, noticing that there was a window ajar on the second story. But how was she going to get up there? An owl hooted just behind her, and startled, Rachel whipped around to see a beautiful snowy owl perched on a branch, just arm's length from the open window. Was it trying to tell her something? Rachel didn't hesitate. With her phone in her pocket, she scrambled up the trunk and out onto the branch. The owl, alarmed, flew screeching into the blackness. She felt a sense of elation as she reached the window, excited that she'd made it this far, and apprehensive about what was inside. She tugged gently at the window, gripping tightly on the windowsill and with her legs on the branch. The window groaned with the force. The panes of glass were covered with spiderwebs and years of dust, so Rachel didn't notice at first the glowing candle inside. When she did, she let out a terrifying scream and fell to the muddy ground below. Well, that brings us to the end of our introductory video on the ACER Scholarship Test. I hope you've got a good idea, a good sense of what the test involves, and have enjoyed completing the sample questions provided. You can learn more at our website, voyagerlearning.com.au, or you can contact us via email info@voyagerlearning.com.au. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.